Okay, so I'm here with Peterborough United manager Darren Ferguson. Darren, how strange a time we live in at this moment in time. What can you do as a manager of a football club at the moment?
Yeah, it's very strange, and everyone's in the same boat. As a manager, in terms of work-wise, you just got to continue doing bits and pieces of work each day, maybe an hour at a time, a couple of hours at a time. Obviously, with the family, that can be a little bit difficult with the kids and stuff, so you've got to make sure that you keep them occupied. So it is a little bit more difficult than normal, but, we're all in the same boat, so we're all just getting on with it and doing as best we can, really.
And I guess the word trust comes into things at this moment in time because you're trusting your players to do the work.
Yeah, I mean, we've put a fair bit of effort into making sure the players get detailed programs, detailed sessions sent to them, which we've been doing every day, and they respond by telling us what part of the session they've done. And then we obviously have a look at it in terms of the fitness elements of things, but we're keeping them up to speed. And you have to trust your players to be professional. They've been told, quite a few times that they've got to make sure we're fighting fit for when we go back, whenever that may be. But we do trust them. I do have a lot of trust in the players. They know how important it is to keep fit, and I think it's important that even not just the physical side of things, the mental side of things probably comes into it a little bit more now. Myself, I'm trying to keep fit, trying to keep the kids out and the garden, do things. It's important that you keep active. I think everyone should take that on board.
Yeah, obviously you're like everybody else listening to government advice and obviously listening to EFL advice and guidelines of when players can come back to training. And of course, because that changes so often, you have to adapt and move with the times.
Yeah, you do. I mean, you have to take the advice the government's given you. I mean, ourselves as a family, we've been in self-isolation for probably nearly 3 weeks now. We took the kids out of school early for that reason, but we just take the advice off the government. And at the moment, I think it's something like you're not allowed out and lockdown until 13th, 14th April, and then we'll just go from there. And we're no different to anyone else in that aspect.
Yeah, and of course, as I say, because you're trusting the sort of players, you don't really know. Obviously, 13th of April is the first date. That will be moved, I'm sure, as we move forward. And I guess it's just making sure that the programs are A, B, and C in terms of what the players can do.
Yeah, at the moment, we're working to that date, but I think everyone would agree that it's probably not going to be that date. It's going to be a lot longer after that. But our job's to make sure that my job is to make sure that the staff keep the players fit. We keep a dialogue with the players. There's a WhatsApp group that we can do that with. And we make sure we keep on top of things. But I'm sure, I've seen Mark Beaver's interview the other day with yourself and, the captain of the club. I'm sure he'll be keeping everyone up to speed as well with the WhatsApp group the players have got between themselves. And there'll be a bit of banter in there and what have you. But we've just got to take the advice of, we're no different to anyone else in terms of we're not working in our workplace at the moment. We're working from home like most of the country, and we've just got to get on with it.
Yeah, clubs will be looking at this lockdown and this suspension of football in so many different ways. As a manager of a football club that was on a great run of form, it didn't come at the ideal time, and you want to get back on the back on the horse as soon as possible.
Yeah, I'm treating it as a close season personally. That's in my own mind. I've sort of thought to myself, like, this is the close season I'm having now. So when obviously the season finishes, you have that 8-week break, whatever it is. It's not actually 8 weeks without doing anything. So I'm treating it like that. I'm working towards next season, whether we get promoted or not, because I do feel the season has to finish. And I'm sure we'll go into that later on in the interview. But so I'm working towards, with the chairman and some other staff, plan A and plan B, recruitment, things like that, analysing the season. I've got time to spare, but I'm doing things I would normally do in the close season. So I'm really just treating it like that in my own mind. And obviously it's slightly different for the players because in a close season, they'll have that winding down period, whereas they're not going to be having that because we don't know when we're going to be back to full training together in games. So it is slightly different for them.
Yeah, you mentioned about the season finishing, and it's really important that for the integrity of the league that happens when it is safe to do so. Lots of people talk about, expunging and null and void, which has happened at the lower end of the non-league. I mean, that would set one horrible precedent if that was the case.
Yeah, I mean, my own take on it, it has to finish. If next season becomes, at the moment, we've got 9 games left ourselves. I think the most anyone's got in our league's 10. So if next season becomes a sort of 55-game season, it becomes a 55-game season, and it might be more with the playoffs and what have you. That's been done before, where teams play 60, 70 games a season. In this day and age, they're absolute athletes, professional athletes, real fit, guys, and I don't think that would be a problem. So for me, the season has to finish, and if it means it being an extended season the following season, then so be it. But for the integrity of the league, I think we have to finish the season, and I would be actually saying that regardless of where we were in the league. So we're strong people in football. We can get through it. If you were to say at football, look, you've got to play 60 games next season, it wouldn't be an issue. If it means us finishing the season in July, for say, and then go into the next bit where it's August, then the players will do that. I don't think there would be any issues with that. I think everyone would want the season finished regardless of where you are in the league at the moment.
Yeah, I think people talking in the non-league are worried because obviously players, contracts and all that kind of stuff. With regards to a manager of a football club, when you've got players out on loan players in at the football club at some time, people coming to the end of their contracts, is it a case where you just have to work together to find a resolution? Often it's players have the power, this have the power, this have the power. Is it come to the agreement that everybody has to pull in the right direction now for the sake of the game?
I think that's the key. I think once you start getting fractions and people going in different directions, that's when it will become a problem. Whatever decision is made, this has to be one that we make collectively. That all the Premier League, the Football League, the PFA, they all have to make this decision collectively. And the one thing they will have had is time to make this decision. No one's rushing them because we don't even know when we can go back to work. So they will have the time to make the correct decision, and they'll have plenty of time to have meetings, and I'm sure they're discussing daily what decision they're going to come to. There's been a lot of talk about deferral of wages, of cuts of wages. I think the most important thing that you've got to remember is everyone's well-being and health. That is the most important thing. And that until we can clear this virus up as a country and we're actually safe to go back to work, I think that can be the only thing we can consider at the moment. Once all that's clear, I think then decisions are going to be made. But they'll have plenty of time to make the correct decision. They'll come together and I'm sure they will make the correct decision. But my own take on it is the league would have to finish. Whether that means it finishes in September, October, in my opinion, it doesn't really matter actually.
Yeah, you mentioned deferrals there. Obviously, a lot of clubs have been doing this, and talking even in Premier League and with regards to staff and all that kind of stuff. And ultimately, as much as people view football as an entertainment business, first and foremost, it's a business. And obviously, if anyone can save money in any walk of life, they'll do that. And you can understand why, the clubs are looking in that road as well.
Yeah, well, for any business, no business would want to trade when they're losing money and they can't pay people. That's what it boils down to. And to trade actually by losing money is obviously not what any business would want to do. And I think that situation is going to happen to a lot of clubs. I think you've seen many very, very good top level examples of players taking cuts. And Barcelona, I think, have taken 70% cut, So, and people will say, well, they're on millions of pounds, which they are, but it's all relevant. It's 70% of the chunk that they're on. I think that's the best example you've got. We have spoken as a club about players taking wage deferrals. I spoke to each player individually, and quite honestly, I was very pleased with the reaction of the players. And obviously, the chairman and the club and I have spoken about different things, and I think there's meetings going on about whether that happens across the board. I don't think there's a choice in that. I think it'll happen. I think it has to happen. Otherwise, clubs are going to go out of business. And I think it's people's responsibilities to make sure that doesn't happen. We want to try and make sure we protect the staff of the whole football club because it is about everyone. And I think if everyone can, again, come together and do that, whatever it may be over a course of time, whether you take wage cuts, wage deferrals, I think the most important thing is to protect the whole staff of the football club. And I know, speaking to the chairman and the owners, that's what they're trying to do at our club, and I'm sure everyone else is trying to do the same.
Yeah, you've had long conversations, obviously, with Darren and obviously with Jason and Randy as well on so many different plans, plan A, plan B, plan C for next season. As you mentioned previously, looking at potential transfer targets. Can you logistically do all of that at this moment in time and get those plans in place?
Yeah, we can, because we always work around this time to a plan A and a plan B. Plan C we would never come into it. We may have to come into it now because there's nothing wrong with not knowing actually what we're going to do here, because it's so rare what we're going through this pandemic. So I think we're sticking to plan A and plan B, and that's always the same. Plan B if we don't go up, plan A if we do. The chairman and I had an hour together on the phone, can't remember what days, a few days ago, and we went through plan A. and we were very close together about myself and what my staff had come up with in terms of recruitment, players we want to keep. So yeah, I think it's a good time to start focusing on that. And it might not be until December that you get to that situation, but you still have to plan.
In terms of injuries, obviously, any club that had injuries at that point when the game stopped would be looking as a positive, if they can take it from there, about those players being able to do their rehabilitation. Obviously, you had a number of players injured. The chairman mentioned about Jack Taylor when he spoke to the old age pensioners this week, senior citizens. Obviously, the Nathan Thompson, Sammy Schmodic. There's quite a number of players seeing Matty in the physio room. Where are they at this moment in time in terms of their rehab?
So Tomo and Smodic are now running. They did 12-minute runs. So they're coming along fine. So if we were to go back next week, say next Monday, you would expect them to be pretty much with the group. Jack Taylor, he's going to be a little bit longer. So it was quite a serious injury he had to his hamstring. So you'd probably be looking at him being another 2 or 3 weeks, tops 4 weeks on top of that. So on a purely selfish professional view, you would say that the timings of what's happened has been a good one. I do have to say there's absolutely no positives from what's gone on. I would rather have done it with the 3 injuries. It wouldn't have bothered me. I'm never bothered by injuries. I would have much rather be sat here talking to you about us winning games without those players in the team. But in terms of the update of injuries, by the time we get back, they're all going to be fine. They're all going to be absolutely fine.
One of the questions is in the Q&A, but I'll ask it now because it's relevant to what you're talking about there. When you eventually do come back, obviously you're going to have what's known, I suppose, as a mini pre-season. Those players that were injured, albeit they're going to be on a slightly lower level than the rest of the players, but the rest of the players are going to have to catch up as well because ultimately they've only done the stuff individually. So they'll collectively be coming back at reasonable levels of fitness at the same sort of time, I guess.
Yeah, I think so. I think they'll all be pretty much on the same sort of level. Yeah. I think the difference with the injured ones is you really need to be treating them visually and seeing them in the GPS and seeing what times they're tracking the runs and tracking their speeds. That's the difference between the players that have been fit. But where we were at was Frankie Kent. He was ready to come straight in with the group almost as everything got cancelled. Tomo and Smodic, we always felt it would be 2 or 3 weeks, maybe a bit longer for Tomo, but they'll be fine. Jack Taylor's the one that you would have to say, well, we don't want to rush anything there because obviously we don't want him to get re-injured. So he'd be the one that you'd say, right, whenever we come back, we're almost saying, right, we need to sort of build him up gradually. He's got no more pain. He's doing all these exercises, but in terms of running, and it's with a lockdown, and I know you can go out for one piece of exercise a day, it can be difficult to find those facilities and all the rest of it. So I think with Smodic, Tomo, Kent, we'll be fine. Whereas Jack, we're not going to take any risks. We'll gradually build him up as we would anyone else that's had that injury.
This is obviously unprecedented times we're living in at this moment in time. You'll look, we'll look back on this and think, how have we got through it and all that kind of stuff. As a football manager, do you have to just take yourself a little bit out of that cocoon and just become a human being again? Because ultimately you've got to look after yourself, look after your family, and look after those that's close to you. Yeah,
well, first and foremost, you look after the health of yourself, hopefully, and your family. And then that's the obvious thing to say, but that's how I looked at it. And once you've got through that, and once you've got through the initial sort of panic of it all and everything that's going on, I think you need to just try and live life as normally as you possibly can, because this will end. We will go back to living our normal lives. It's just when we don't know. That's the thing. So we have to try and live our life as best we can, and obviously with the family, you're indoors together, and perhaps it could be a good time to reflect on things in terms of a lot of people helping each other out. We've gone back to that. I think that's a good thing when you're helping your neighbours and helping everyone else. So perhaps it's a time of reflection as well.